Good evening, everybody, and you're very welcome to our European Greenleaf series of webinars. This is a webinar with a difference because we're having a live workshop with Ger in the National Rediscovery Centre. So we're delighted to have, there's Ger there waving, Ger and also Grania, who's co-hosting with me tonight. So the Rediscovery Centre is a fabulous place in Dublin, Ballymun area, and they're the National Centre, National Academy for the Circular Economy. So very important group. We're delighted to have them with us here tonight. It is National Reuse Month, along with it being our European Greenleaf Year. So I'll hand over to Ger and Grania to carry on with the workshop.
Thanks very much, Sinead. Hello, folks. You're very welcome to the Rediscovery Centre here in Ballymun. We've been in existence since 2006, but this is our new guys in our lovely new centre here in the old boiler house, the epitome of reuse, certainly on an industrial level. The building was the old heating hot water system, community hot water system for Ballymun, and we took over the building and changed it into this centre for the circular economy, showing people how to reuse objects and items and live a more circular life. What I'm going to do with this evening, my background is in antique restoration, and upcycling will be the modern equivalent of that. I've been at the restoration trade for 42 years, so I've picked up a few wee tips which I hope to share with you tonight. You'll get the benefit of my knowledge, I hope. I've gathered a few bits and pieces, so you have to forgive if I'm moving around a bit. Grania's going to try and follow me with the camera. Best of luck to her for that. Thanks very much, Grania. But I'll be moving between and setting up a few bits and pieces that I've gathered for you to demonstrate. On upcycling, certainly upcycling is really in vogue at the moment and has been for a few years. You do need to be a little bit mindful of what you're actually working on. You don't want to be sort of slapping a coat of paint on an 18th century piece of Irish furniture, or a nice Swedish designer item from the 1970s that is possibly a very valuable piece. So a little bit of forethought and research always goes down well. First tip of the night, I've got just in the antiques trade, there are one or two little small tricks that might indicate the age of an item. And here's one that we have, a very basic one, and it's a collection of screws, and you'll see why. I gathered these together to show you. Now, that's a regular slot head screws. Sorry, they're all slot head screws. This type of configuration of head, very old-fashioned type, not the modern posi drive or Phillips screw. But this is not what I'm interested in, actually. It's the other end. It's this point here. Now you'll see that this has a distinctive point on it, and that's called a gimlet point. Just a very pointed, like every other regular screw that you've seen, whether it's a posi drive or a Phillips head. This is a modern slot head screw, but here is something from a different era. It's a regular slot head screw, rusty at all, I know, and the slot is full of old dust. But if you notice that the head is gone, there's no point on it. If you see, the head is flat. Now, and the same with this one. The head is flat on that as well. That indicates to me that screw was made before 1890. And the reason I say that is because prior to 1890, all screws looked like this. They had a flat head on it, no point on it. And after 1890, the gimlet pointed screw began to come into fashion. And it's just a different matter of manufacturing. They were able to manufacture the one with the point on it. That's a good shot. Well done, Grania. they were able to manufacture the screw with a point on it. After 1890, it started to come into popular use. So that's just so if you take a screw out of a hinge or a fitting on a say, could be in a lock or a handle, and you find that it looks like that with a flat top on it, no point on it, you could fairly well say that that piece of furniture dates prior to 1890. All right, so that's your first wee tip from the trade for today. And I'll just put them away because they're quite precious to me now, actually, because I use them for other workshops. I'll leave them there. Now, the one of the things that we do in the trade is stripping off an item. I'm using paint remover and paint strippers. The health and safety, the product is now water-based, so it's very safe to use. It's gentle on your skin, and also it's relatively it's harmless to breathe in. Unlike the previous items, so I've chosen just a piece of oak here to remove the original finish on it. It's a messed up piece of it was originally French polished, I think. It's probably from an old desk, and it's splattered with paint. But you can see this is the stuff we use here in the workshop. It's a paint remover. That's the paint remover here. This is a water-based paint stripper. So you liberally. I'll end up getting a tongue twister here. You liberally apply the paint remover. Now, I have already done this earlier today to speed up the process for you tonight. But one thing you need to do is when you go to use the paint remover, always apply a wet coat. It works far better when you actually are working a wet surface, and that's enough now on that. Also, another tip, you're going to be hearing this now for the next wee while. Another tip is that you can cover it with a plastic sheet. Cover the item with a plastic sheet, an old bin bag or whatever. It seals in the vapors. It stops it from drying out. In case if you're working in a warm atmosphere, it'll naturally dry out. And so just wrap it in a plastic bag or something like that to keep in the moisture. A paint scrape, just a regular paint scrape. No harm to put an edge on it. Just don't have the corners too sharp if you're doing it, because they can dig in. And then you start to scrape. And that's working like a treat. That's all the old polished surface and paint, everything coming off there, which is really good. Great for demonstrations when they work like this. You can see the amount that's coming off there, and there's no extra secrets that I didn't tell you of what I've done there, but that's working out very well, very efficiently. I hope all the rest of my demonstrations go as well as this, and that's the result. Okay, now you won't get away with so that's what came off that. Now you won't get away with just this application. You have to reapply. You have to forgive my lack of attention to detail just to get through this. It's just I want to give a general impression. But you won't get away with just that as being your finished cleaning. So you need to reapply. As I said, you need to keep working this one while it's wet. So you need to reapply. have a look. Everybody watching me? Everybody seeing what I'm doing? Thanks, Grania. So if you just work approximately a foot square or 18 inches square, you can see that it's, I've just covered that area there. That's nice there, Grania. You can just see that there. Now, next stage is to use some wire wool. Now, this stuff is brilliant if you use it correctly. This is grade number 4. You can see extra coarse, okay? Now, the trick with this is do not pull it. You'd imagine you just can grab that now and just grab it in your hands and just pull it like that. You will give yourself the most horrendous cut. The worst cuts I've gotten in my workshop have been from this stuff. Not from chisels or from planes or saws or anything like that. It's actually from wire wool. It's like cheese wire. If you pull it in your hands and it slips. So always cut it. A big old rough scissors. And just cut yourself a lump of the wire wool. Ball it up like that. And start cleaning. Now you can obviously wear heavy gloves to do this if you like. But this, you can see that what's coming off there. This is a very kind paint stripper. It has a very pleasant scent off of it. It's like a citrus type smell off it. And it's really very efficient, as you can see. Now I am using a bit of elbow grease there to remove the last vestiges of the paint stripper and the old surface. You can see to me now that is clean. And of course you can see what's after what came off there. That's the last bit of it. Just tease out the wire wool. Not pulling it, just tease it out. Rub away. Staying with the grain, of course. It's kind of a basic rule of thumb with any woodworking that you're doing is that you always work with the grain. The lads here in the workshop on our CE scheme here would hear me saying things differently at times, because there was like every rule there are exceptions. There are times when you do go across the grain, but certainly not at this stage with using wire wool and strippers and sandpaper and things like that. So you can see that that's the surface we're looking for. Okay, so that's fully prepared. Right back down to the raw again. You can actually see the pores of the oak. This is a piece of oak. You can see the pores of the oak actually are so clean. It's particularly nice. Great, you can see it there. All right, and that's what we do as preparation for quite a bit of furniture, and that's really a great method of preparing it. You're back down to the raw again now. Now you choose whether you want to paint it or to wax it, oil it, French polish it, whatever you like, because you're back down to a raw surface there. And as I say, as long as it's not an 18th century piece of Irish furniture, you're off. Okay, we'll put these pieces to one side, and we'll move on to another topic. You have to forgive me from referring to my notes here as well, because to keep things moving for you. Now, let's run it. Just a little few words. By the way, you can ask questions and send in questions. Grania's going to be able to read the questions for me. I'll keep working and talking, and Grania will refer your questions to me. So please do send in your questions. They always make the evening or the courses pass better. Now, just a little word or two on repairs and glues. You're probably glad that you're in Limerick and not here beside me because the smell of this stuff is pretty fierce. Poor Grania's going to have to experience this. This is what we use in the antiques trade. I'll unplug. This is what's called animal glue. It's made from the hoofs and horns of creatures, of animals, and you melt it in a double jacketed boiler like that. It's like a bain-marie type of affair, and that's the glue. Ancient glue has been used since the dawn of mankind. Probably in, I think it certainly was used, evidence of it being used in Tutankhamun's tomb. So it's around that length of time. And the modern equivalent is PVA, or white woodworking glue. It's very common, lots of brands, lots of different types. It's very good. Okay, items that were made prior to 1960s were generally constructed, put together with animal glue. They're not compatible. That's the point I'm making, is that PVA white woodworking glue is not compatible with animal glue. So if you're trying to repair a piece of furniture that's prior to 1960s, you're better off trying to use the original glue, because when you use PVA in the joint, it'll set for 4-6 weeks. Then the job comes back to you because it'll have fallen apart again. They're just completely incompatible. So try not to mix the two of them up. There's something for you. How do you identify animal glue when it's in a joint, or how would you know when it's in a joint? Here's a quick one for you. I have it behind me. Now, this is a board that I know there's animal glue here. There was a piece glued on here, a piece of molding stuck onto it, and simply, if you scorch it, the smell is not the very organic smell that is of animal glue. The smell is of burning hair or singeing hair, and that is the giveaway sign that it's animal glue, because animal glue is made from keratin. And what else is made from keratin but your hair? That's how you can tell if it's animal glue. If you scorch it, you'll get the smell of burning hair. Very simple, and quite a giveaway. It's pretty awful, but actually not nearly as awful as the smell of the glue itself. It's pretty gross stuff. But I'm going to actually do a little bit of work with it. There's a chair that I have here that I wanted to demonstrate to you. Excuse me for moving around, just getting things out of my way.
Sure, we have a question in.
Right.
We have Anna. Carol is curious about what was the name of the paint stripper you were using, the citrus.
I was waiting for that. Here we go. The name of the paint stripper is that X-Tex. It's a water-based X-Tex. It's a very, very kind water-based stripper made by a company called Home Strip. It's one of the best of the water-based strippers for sure. Is that okay?
Lovely, thank you.
You're welcome to get in touch with us anytime here at the Rediscovery Centre. We're open to the public, and we're open to any questions or queries that anybody wants to get in touch with us about. I'm here all the time, so like a phone call is never an issue. Now, this I was going to talk a little. Yes, when you are doing any sort of gluing work. Excuse me. When you are doing any sort of gluing work, glue always should be set under pressure. Whether it's PVA, animal glue, super glue, any sort of contact adhesive, anything at all, it really should be set under pressure. One of the things that we use in the trade a lot is this type of clamp. This is what's called a sash clamp. It's a brilliant piece of kit that is quite invaluable to us here in the workshop. Here's another type of clamp. It's a G clamp, just because the shape of it. It's called a G clamp. The nothing got to do with me, Jerry Griffin, but it's big G clamp. And this, as I say, is a sash clamp. Absolutely invaluable. If you don't have these, if you don't have access to them, I'll actually show you a simple way of clamping up a chair. It's probably one of the main things that happens in people's houses is that, oh, my dining chairs have gone loose. Do I have to throw them out? No, you don't. You can actually just tighten up the joints again. And here in the workshop, we will, of course, we use the industrial sash clamp for doing that. But I'm going to show you something that you can use at home. And it's something that you've heard of before, I'm sure. It's called a tourniquet. And it's simply a rope and a stick. And this is a chair that I took apart. You can see that's how the chair sits together. And you can see the dowels have all come apart. And so the chair was really quite rickety. That's a trade term, by the way, rickety. And here's our glue. All right. Now, there's another wee tip as well. Don't fill the dowel holes with glue. Because you'll end up not being able to close the joint well enough, because you won't get the same pressure with a tourniquet as you would with the industrial clamp. So don't fill the holes with glue. Apply the glue to the dowels. Now, this really pongs. Poor Grania. But another thing as well. This has to be used in a warm atmosphere. You can't use this glue in the cold. And you get it closed as quickly as you possibly can. There we go. All pushed home. And now, as I said, you have to actually clamp that, get some pressure on that in order to squeeze the excess glue out of the joint. And this is what we're going to use. It's just a simple piece of rope. As I said, it's a tourniquet. You've heard the term. And a stick. Start winding it up. Keep the rope in the center of the joint as best you can. Keep turning. Needs to be up a bit higher. There we go. That's closing well. Now, what do we do now? This is a little trick I learned as well. It's only like a rubber band, just to hold the rope, the stick in position. That's really held well. That's great. Can you do that, Grania? You can see that the glue is oozing out of the joint, which is exactly what you want to see. And a wipe of a cloth will take away the excess glue. And that is a joint that's going to last for another 30, 40 years, which is, I think, a good result for that amount of work. It's relatively simple, and you can see that the tourniquet really works. Hopefully more people will be able to use that at home. As I said, try and identify the type of glue that the chair is constructed from. Identify whether it's animal glue or whether it's PVA, the white woodworking glue. That'll give you an indication of the age, and then you'll know which is the correct glue to use. I'm going to show you something else now. just throwing an eye on my notes. Thank you very much. There are various ways of clamping. I showed you the two industrial type clamps. Something simple as tape. If you have a chip of veneer or a little chip off the edge of a table, simply get some glue under it, a bit of masking tape, and tape it down. Put plenty of pressure on it. The masking tape will actually deliver quite a bit of pressure. So if you pull the tape over, smooth it over the piece that the cracked piece of timber, and just hold it in position with a piece of masking tape. Absolutely simple stuff. That's a really simple way of getting down a piece of loose veneer or something like that on the edge of a table. Another way of doing it, I'll show you what we call cats. Yes, I said cats. Now, of course, we have these things lying around in the workshop, and you know what it is? It's an upholstery spring, not a concertina. You see? Great, nice one, Grania. It's an upholstery spring, and you say, what are you going to do with that? Well, very simple. Sorry for all the noise, and mind your teeth on this, okay? So this is what's called a junior hacksaw. Any DIY would have these. Yeah, that's one bit. See what I've done there? Don't mind that. That's just there's a bit of waste. And this is high tensile spring steel. So this I'm really pulling that. Okay. So that's a great clamp. I'll show you. Now that'll hold anything like that together. Absolutely brilliant piece of clamping. I'll show you again. I'll just cut another one. You can see where I cut the next one here, opposite the first cut. Easy, just bend it into shape. And I'll clamp. I'll find something to clamp to show you a bit more impressionable. See those two pieces. And they're solid together, just perfect. Like if they were two pieces of timber, there's no give in those. Okay, a piece with glue between, and that's an excellent way of clamping. We call it a cat. I don't know where the term comes from, but that's what we use. Great way of using up upholstery springs as well. So that's a little bit on gluing and clamping. I hope you learned something there.
Sorry, yeah. Jenny's just wondering, where do you get the glue from? The animal glue.
The animal glue. Well, I remember back in school, one of the things we used to do in geography was, the industries in every town, and every town had a glue factory. Like they had tanning and the whole lot. They've all gone now, and I actually get my glue from Germany. Believe it or not, it comes in from Germany. You buy it on the internet basically, and you're looking for pearl glue, PEARL, pearl glue or animal glue. And that's basically it. If you can get it on the web.
Thank you.
And it's very, very cheap, probably cheaper than PVA, and it's brilliant. Just have to remember to use it. It has to be melted. it has to be melted in a double jacketed container, so you could use it like a bain marie type of affair. You cover the pearls of glue in about 25 ml of water, about an inch of water, and it melts to a pouring cream consistency is what you're looking for. Let's see if this is the right consistency for you. It should flow off the brush. Yeah, it's just flowing nicely off the brush. That's slightly thick because that glue pot has been on all day, so it really needs a bit of extra water in it by rights, but it's still sufficient to do the job this evening.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Now, okay, a little bit on painting. So the upcyclers do a lot of painting, and one of the best things that I've picked up over the years is the use of a roller rather than using a paintbrush. I'm not a painter by trade, but we can still get a good finish on items, a good painterly finish on items by using a 4-inch roller rather than actually using a paintbrush. When you think of it, like a professional painter is using a paintbrush every day of his life or her life, so you become very proficient with it. And for an amateur, it's quite difficult to get a painted surface without showing the paintbrush lines on it. So the roller is a great tool for that. And what I mean are these guys. Where's my handle? Sorry, I had a brush, a paint. Oh, here it is, hiding on me. This is what I mean. This is a 4-inch roller. This is a foam roller, which is is sufficient to use for nearly everything. But it's really good for gloss varnishes and things like that. The other type of roller, which we actually prefer to use here in the workshop, is this fleece roller, which is really, really good as well. They're very simple to interchange. Simple as that. And that fleece roller gives you a really nice, almost sort of eggshell finish. There's sort of slightly dimpled finish on it, which hides a multitude. If you're not a really proficient painter, and then something else as well. If you didn't like the type of finish that you were getting with the roller, you could always try to use the brush. But what we do is you can apply the paint with the roller, and then simply, lightly, just drag the brush across the surface of the paint. Just literally let it run across it. Now, I'm obviously not doing that. Just literally gliding the brush across the surface of the paint. And that will give you a different type, a more painterly finish than using the roller. But we get away with using the roller a lot, and still you can get a great finish from it. What was I going to do now? I think I was going to demonstrate that was the rollers and brushes. Paints. The paints that we use here in the workshop, we recycle our own paint. It's part of what we do in the Rediscovery Centre. We have a company called Rediscover Paint, where we go out and we collect all the paints from different recycle centres. We probably will be setting up something in Limerick and Cork and Galway, we hope. And we collect the waste paint and bring it back to our workshops, strain it, repot it, and sell it on. But it's basically emulsion paint. If you can see in the background, all these chairs here that we paint, these colourful chairs, are all painted with household emulsion paint. But they have a particular type of finish, which I'll explain to you in a few minutes about how we actually finish them differently than most people would. Okay, here's one or two little tips on paint and paint finishes. Well, there's a way of preserving your brushes. You see, that's a brand new brush that's never been used. As you can see, all these used brushes. And I said, what are you doing with this? That little band, little elastic band, rubber band actually, is great for actually keeping the hairs and bristles of the brush straight. You know, when you put your brush away, you leave it and you stick it in a jar, and it comes back and it's looking with all bits of hairs sticking out all over the place. Well, this little elastic band or rubber band does the business. It's relatively loose, a loose fit, but it only has to be a loose fit. And just slide it on over the bristles, and that's enough to keep your bristles straight and in good order. How do you get those bands? Right, there you go. More tips for you from the trade. These are all bicycle inner tubes, and simple as that. Here's another band, rubber band. So that's a very simple way of making a rubber band. Just from a bicycle. From a bicycle, it's a bit too big. Sorry for that, for this particular brush, and this one's a bit too small for this particular brush. So, but there are lots of different bicycle inner tube sizes that you can get one to certainly match. I did here to certainly match your brushes. That's another just a wee tip for you as well. How to keep your gear in good condition. I'll just put them away. I'm going to lift up this little bedside locker that I had put away for you. We've done a little bit of work on this today. Myself and the lads here, and you can see that we're getting a nice finish on this. This is only been undercoated, and you see, that very common tongue and groove finish. Just a design, quite a simple design, but it looks nice now. But this was it before, and you can see that there's a large gap between the boards here, and also like some paint has crept in here, and is partially filling the gap, which really is quite unsightly. And I wouldn't like to see that leaving our workshop here. So I'm going to show you how we would tackle that, and it's with a simple product and technique. It's called caulking. I'm just going to see if I can set that in a particular position, and you should be able to see that. And this is what you might be familiar with. This is a decorator's caulk, C-A-U-L-K. Okay, and it's absolutely brilliant stuff for filling gaps of a certain size. And it's done in a gun, and it squeezes out like toothpaste. Now I'm keeping constant pressure on that. A nice even pressure. And you'll see how I'll finish it now in a minute. I've done it just in an awkward position here, I'm afraid, with the vice is just getting in my way. This is live broadcast for you at its best. I'm applying too much there now, but you'll see what I have to do next. Now, a drop of water with some washing up liquid in it. Simply rub down the joint. Okay. And you end up with a really nice, smooth finish and no gap. And you can paint over that, they say, in an hour. I generally would leave it for a little bit longer than that. Will I do the second one? Might as well while I'm here, while I'm looking at it. Yeah. So just keep a constant pressure on the gun. This is a caulking gun. Very simple tool. takes a little bit of getting used to using it, but once you've done it a few times, you get the knack of it. You see the when you buy this is a perfect cone, and possibly a little hole in the top. But I generally will cut it at a severe angle like that. It's more than 45 degrees, to give you a nice chamfered finish to let you get into the gap there. I'm just going to wipe this down before it dries. So that's it. Just water with a little bit of washing up liquid in it to make it run better. And now when that dries, I'll show you the far side again. It'll look exactly like the far side of course, it has to get a coat of paint over it, but it will look exactly like that side when it dries. So you can see it gives you a really lovely finish. No gaps and no unsightly bits of paint sticking in the joint. Right. So that's what we do with that.
Ger, we have another question in.
Yeah.
And it's from Anne, and Anne is interested in knowing what you think of chalk paint, and do you recommend it instead of conventional paint for furniture?
Chalk paint. There's a great fascination for chalk paint. Absolutely. There's some of the chalk paints are brilliant. They have great coverage as paint. We've had no need to use chalk paint here. We use our own household emulsion paint. The same paint as you would put on your walls and ceilings, we use it on our furniture. Grania showed you the colours on the chairs there. There's a fabulous pink chair behind her as well. Have a look at that. That's coming up very bright. That's a beautiful shade of pink, actually, in reality. It might be coming up slightly different on the camera. But we've had no need to use chalk paints. We can get all the effects of chalk paint by using a household emulsion, which is water-based, very safe paint. It's a great way of reusing those bits of paints that are sitting out in the garage. You've no need to go out and buy very expensive small cans of chalk paint, which are very expensive. The household emulsion will do just as well. And you can get all the same effects by using sandpaper and wire wool to do the distressing. That's another type of finish that is very popular with chalk paints. So that would be my opinion on chalk paints, is that they're an unnecessary expense. I'll show you something as well, just on sandpapers. It came into my. I hope that answers the question for the.
Yes, I think so. I think people will be delighted with that answer.
Good. You can reuse all that paint from those multicolored bedrooms that you have.
Fascinating. Fascinating. I've been a fan of chalk paint myself.
Very good. Just a wee word on sandpaper. People are wondering smooth, medium, fine. How to describe it when you go into the hardware to ask for sandpaper. All sandpapers come with numbers on the back of them, and this is number P. P stands for particle, so it's P220, which means there's 220 particles per square centimeter. P180, P120. Now that's just to confuse you. PS, that means nothing for me. It's just manufacturer's numbers. This single P number is the one that indicates the grit of the paper. P100. We would rarely use anything rougher than 100. That's the grade. That's P100. I say we rarely use anything ever rougher than that. So it's P100, 120, 180. 220 is where we would generally finish our woodworking with 220. You can see it's a nice fine paper, and that'll be the final finish for our woodworking. And then this is what we use for polishing, for when we're using between coats of paint, between coats of varnish, between coats of French polish. That's the number there, P320. So that's a very, very fine paper. It's like you barely notice the grit on it, but it's not too fine. There's no in the motor trade when they're doing spraying cars and things like that. They use terribly fine papers. They go up to grits of 5,000, which is barely, you wouldn't know it's sandpaper at all. It's almost just like brown paper, but it's an incredibly fine grit. So they would use that like for polishing car paints and things like that. But in the woodwork trade, in the finishing trade, number 320 is regarded as a very fine figure to aim for and to use.
Thanks, Ger. Ger, we have a couple of more questions coming in, and the question
Great.
relates to the chalk paint.
Right.
And
Am I in trouble?
No, you're not. Not at all. What would you use on previously waxed furniture, or how would you get the wax off? Because Anne, it seems, has got the chalk paint mainly to use it over the wax furniture.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question, because really you have to do something about the wax on the furniture first. Nothing will take over wax in time. Everything will flake off the wax, whether it's chalk paint or solvent based paint. It'll still come off a wax finish. What you have to do is to wash the item. Now, just bear with me 1 second. I have to get something out. I wasn't expecting this. I know I have to go to the cabin to get something out. This is our locker, and this is something that you will be very familiar with. Washing soda crystals. Very, very common product.
Very good.
You get it in most supermarkets. Householders would know all about this. It is a brilliant degreaser, and it's for we would use it for washing, which is the very first thing that we would do for an item. Before we would strip an item or anything like that, we would generally wash it in order to degrease it and to see just what kind of state it's in. So if you have a piece of waxed furniture, this is ideal for it. Boiling water, a pair of those black marigold gloves, the heavy duty household gloves, protect your hands from the hot water. A rough old face cloth or old tea towel, so it's a rough cotton cloth or a piece of old toweling, and a good fistful of soda crystals in the water. Absolutely brilliant. Do rinse the item down when you're finished, because it'll bring up the grain. And also, if you leave it sitting on it for too long, it's just not good for timber to be exposed to that sort of wet for too long. So I hope that answers that question. I wasn't expecting that, but that's great to be able to bring you that bit of a tip.
Very good. And we have another one from Carol, and it relates to paint, but the emulsion paint.
Yeah.
What would you use to seal the emulsion paint?
Oh, and somebody's been reading my mind. This was the end of the product. No, it's great. It's great because I think we're getting close on time anyway. One of the great things that I found as well since I started working here as well, you're collaborating with other people all the time, and you're making friends and swapping information and that. And was the use of acrylic varnish. Acrylic varnish is this stuff. I'm not advertising a product, but this is absolutely brilliant. A brilliant varnish. It's a water-based varnish, very kind to yourself and your materials, and also to the environment. It's water-based. It applies really, really easily. It's not cheap. It's relatively expensive, but it does a fantastic job. One of the best things about it is it's non-yellowing. If you use polyurethane varnishes, they yellow with time. which is a nice effect if you want that effect over, say, pine furniture, to get that sort of that depth of color with pine furniture over time. That it's nice when it yellows slightly. That's partly to do with ultraviolet light, and also partly to do with polyurethane varnish. But this, if you're using emulsion paint, you must finish it with an acrylic varnish, and this is the best acrylic varnish to finish it with. The reason I say that is because the emulsion paint is generally has a matte finish on it. It gets grubby very quickly. If you're handling the chairs, you're handling a table or a bedside locker or something like that you've painted with an emulsion paint, it's going to get very grubby. So in order to give you an ability to wipe it down and clean it, you must put a layer of varnish on it. And this is the varnish to use, acrylic varnish. Okay, different sheen levels. This one here is clear, dead flat. So that's really a very matte varnish. It comes in satin finish and gloss. I generally would go for the satin, my own, but that's a question of taste.
Lovely. Thank you.
Any other questions there, Sinead?
Yeah, there's another one. Would you ever upcycle furniture with woodworm?
With woodworm?
With woodworm.
Of course. The great friend of the antique restorer is woodworm. No, I'm being facetious. It's a holy terror. If the part of the item can be replaced with woodworm in it, like the back of an item, the underneath, the bottom of a piece of furniture, I would replace it because it's a fierce pest to try and control otherwise. Now I'm talking about non-antique furniture. If it's an antique piece of furniture, you really have to be careful about what you're replacing on it. But if it's a piece of furniture that, is, what's the term for it? There's a term for mid-century items that are good for upcycling. But you have to watch out for worm in plywood. It goes rampant in plywood. It's like in the back of a cabinet, in the underneath of a cabinet. Check out those places in the legs and feet of an item. You can treat the woodworm with, I'm afraid, it's an insecticide, which is not very good to the environment or your own health. But you can do it. Sometimes it's necessary to do it to preserve an item. The Cuprinol is a good type of good brand of woodworm killer. The professionals at the higher end of the market who are doing conservation work, say for museums and things like that, would generally freeze the items. If you put an item of furniture in a freezer for a fortnight, you will kill everything in it. -18, -20 degrees will kill all the woodworm that's in it. I don't know if your freezer is big enough to take a dining chair or another cabinet, but that's generally what the professionals at that level would use. They would have, I know that there's one company has a 40-foot container that's actually made turned into a freezer, and they fill it with furniture every now and then and kill all the woodworm in it. That's basically it.
Wow, that's very interesting. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Will I go on? We'll go on. What I was going to show you was one or two little paint techniques, and very, very simple stuff. These are some things I've been working on today. This is just a very common little bedside locker. It's the one that I showed you earlier when I was filling the sides with caulk. Now, just using something simple like masking tape can give you a great effect. This is an undercoat, and this was the overcoat, and this is a nice effect that you can get from masking tape. A nice clean finish like that. Now you can see that I've done it on the other pieces as well. And people, one thing that people ask is, oh, should you let the paint dry or before you take off the masking tape? In my opinion, these have gone a little too dry because I prepared these earlier today. I generally would remove the masking tape while the paint is slightly damp, in order that you don't peel. Sometimes you get a connection between the edge of the paint and the edge of the paint and the masking tape, and it'll tear a little bit of the paint off. That won't happen if the paint is wet. So generally, I would say you should remove the masking tape before the paint fully dries. Otherwise, you can get a little bit of tear away. And another thing as well is if you pull the mask, I pulled that off too quickly. So, but I'll show you now what I mean. If you pull the masking tape in a certain direction, I'll just get I'll show you what I mean. Right, this is just to show you what I should have showed you. If you got the masking tape and pull it away from the paint you want to preserve, like that, you will get rather than pulling it that way. By doing it that way, you're actually tearing this paint away here, if it was in reality. So always pull it away from the paint that you're trying to preserve, right? Like that. Now, the other thing as well is the type of masking tape to use. This is another brand, I'm afraid, but there's a few of these on the market now. This one is good. It's one of the original ones called frog tape, but really the term is low tack tape. I'm tripping myself up here with words tonight. I can barely speak. It's low tack tape, and the reason for low tack tape is it does what it says. It's low tack. It doesn't stick. If you use regular masking tape, the chances are it'll actually stick to a surface, and you'll be left with a nasty mark. Also, you can use low tack tape on wallpaper. So if you're painting against a wallpapered wall, this is what you use. Don't use regular masking tape, or else you'll tear your wallpaper off. You use low tack tape, and I'm going to use it on this here just to demonstrate roughly what I'm talking about. Now, if you were able to see that there in reality, I'm leaving an absolute hair of the green paint showing. Just an absolute hair. But I'm not trying to get 100% coverage over the edge of the green paint. All right. Because you'll see why. Now, if I want to use, what will I use in that ground? What color will I use? Yellow. We go for the Kerry colors here. I'm just going to use a little bit of yellow paint on this. Very simple. This is a yellow emulsion that we collected and cleaned and potted up ourselves. And you can be as careless as you like, and don't worry about rolling over the tape. That's what it's there for. Now, this would, in reality, take another probably 2 coats to get a nice finish on it, as in a nice finish on the yellow. I think some of these have had 2 or 3 coats today. The lads are busy in the workshop here. And another thing as well, always sand between coats. It seems like a pain to, you've done all your sanding, you've done all your preparation, but you get a far superior finish if you remember to sand between coats of paint. And you're not talking about removing material, as in sanding away material. You're talking about improving the finish, literally just leveling the surface.
Ger, what grade of sandpaper would you use between coats?
Fair play. That's the number 320 paper, the very fine one. And this is what hopefully this will work for me now. There you go.
Sorry, Jer, your sound is gone there.
I'm sure somebody in Kerry will want to buy this. Kerry colour. The that's basically another set. We'll find one more thing. Yes. The those with no knobs.
Jer, apologies, your sound is gone.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
The sound is very poor.
Okay.
Oh, gotcha. There you go.
Great. Okay. Good stuff. The just one or two last tips. The just a great way of giving something a lift is to change the knobs on it. You can see that there's a variety of knobs you can get. I've been going for these quite a bit recently. They have a great effect for them. They're really cheap little knobs, but they give a great effect. If you don't want to do that and you want to preserve the ones that you have already, here's what you do. You remove the knobs, and how do you paint them? You stick them on a little board like that. That's just the screws going through. Okay, and then you stick them on a board like that. It means you don't handle them. There's no handling of the knobs. You paint them like that. Keep the little gap between the board and the bottom of the knob, and that is how you get a nice finish on your old handles. It's a nice way of doing it.
Very good. Jer, we have
Okay.
two questions in now.
Great.
One relates to knobs and the other relates to woodworm treatment. Okay.
No problem.
So we'll go do the woodworm first.
Yeah.
Would you inject the holes or would you sponge with woodworm treatments?
If I was doing it, I would generally inject. There's two ways of doing it. On an absorbent surface, as in like an unpolished surface where there's no polish, no paint. That would be an absorbent surface. You can literally paint it on with a brush, and it's made from a penetrating substance. So it'll actually absorb into the timber like blotting paper. So that's a good way to do it on an unpainted surface or an unpolished surface. If the holes are appearing on a polished or painted surface, then you inject because the chemical won't actually penetrate. I do one hole every square inch or so. One every square inch. You don't have to do every hole because it's a honeycomb. If you broke the surface of a woodwormed piece of timber, it looks like a bar of aero. It's completely honeycomb.
Okay. The sound was slightly off there now, Jer, so just
No
watch
problem.
that if you can. Very good.
Good luck.
And then the next question was, can you recommend where to buy, different types of knobs for cabinets, like say some of the crystal one that you had there or whatever?
To be honest with you, these were from Etsy. It's a website, sells all sorts of different types of products. And if you search for knobs, you just have to know what size that you want. And also there's they have a thread. They come with a threaded bar. So you generally have to know the thickness of the drawer front, as in, how thick it is the nut that the bar will go through. You put a nut on the end of it, and then you just simply cut the piece that sticks out with a junior hacksaw, the type that I use for cutting the springs.
Oh, very good. Jer, actually, I, believe it or not, just put new crystal knobs on a drawer, and I bought them, they were too short, basically, and they wouldn't go through the drawer. And I went to a hardware store, like a Daly's in Limerick. It's a local one, a very local one. And they were able to give me these screws that you can break the ends off, if you like, with the pinchers. And then
Great. They're an electrician's fitting.
Okay.
They're generally used for extending sockets and things like that. And electricians use them. They're great.
Okay.
Good tip. Thanks, Sinead. It's a good tip.
You're welcome. Just on that, on where to buy knobs, I think you can find them in a range of places.
Sure.
I'm not sure if it's okay to mention the different. You can find them in your neighbours if they're changing theirs. Okay. Things like that. But also TK Maxx. They run them from time to time. Lots of the, the smaller stores would have them, and some of the craft shops have them as well. A bit like Etsy, people have made them themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we get donations of furniture, sometimes we like an item is just too far gone for whatever reason, with woodworm or whatever. If behind Grania we have a stack of drawers with all the different fittings that we have actually scavenged off other pieces of furniture. So we collect. There's a drawer there that actually says handles and knobs, and so we actually collect all of those bits and pieces. Of other items, so we don't waste anything ourselves here.
Very good.
Sometimes buy something new.
Very
But
good.
and also we did a great job for it was Offaly County Council, and we used cutlery for handles, and we did a kitchen for them, and
Oh, very good. That was actually featured in one of the My Waste videos on Twitter this week. I saw it. It was very interesting. Yeah.
Oh yes, that's our work. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions?
That's all of our questions now, Ger.
Great, Sinead. I think we're done on time. I think that I've gone through just about everything.
We are.
So I hope people enjoyed that, and might visit our website and have a look and see what courses we're going to come up with. We'll try and get some courses online. It's the www.rediscoverycentre.ie, and you'll be able to visit us and see what news we have and what courses we have coming up.
Okay, we have a comment in. Thanks very much. You were very good. So that was from Jean. I don't know where Jean is in the country, but Ger, I want to thank you and Grania for your time this evening. It was a wonderful workshop. Lots of tips there on upcycling. I'm ashamed of some of the upcycling I've done. I never sand. What can I never? But I'll do better in the future. I promise.
Good.
We will be putting this live or a recording up on our YouTube channel, so it will be there for people to see again. And the Rediscovery Centre website is rediscovery.ie, www.rediscovery.ie. Thank you so much for participating in our European Greenleaf year. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Sinead.
Good night, everybody.